Here is a look at a Drake AC4 power supply that I picked up on eBay for about $100. It was cheaper because, well, sometimes you get lucky and find them just fine for $100. Usually these are selling for between $200 and $250, which work. Anyway, this one was wired for a Johnson radio. Johnson what? I don't know which. Ranger, a Johnson Ranger. I have no idea what a Johnson Ranger is. Anyway, the plug on this thing is wired for a Johnson Ranger still, so I gotta snip that off and put on a Drake type Jones plug. So this guy had this thing wired up in all sorts of strange configurations. I just basically tried to match the Drake diagram with it by moving wires and pulling parts out and just putting parts in and making sure that it goes back to its Drake configuration, and it has. So I can take you through how these basically work, just how they look inside. Really no great theory, but this is a voltage doubler here, and basically 2 red wires from the main transformer. And you can see here there are 2 red wires, pretty much here and here. So I just followed this diagram to get it back how it was. And this had 2 capacitors in here still existing, the R1 and R2, I'm sorry, no, the C1 and C2. So those were still there. Resistors were there. This guy had added a bunch of diodes, and I think he took it out of being a voltage doubler into a single power supply. So I changed it back to a doubler, and it's working. I'm getting about 700 volts out of it. Anyway, that leaves the B plus power supply. This is for the finals. This one is for B plus for the rest of the tubes. 250 volts. I found that the guy had yanked out this capacitor. This one is for the bias, and I guess he yanked out that one too, but he left this one was in here. So I thought, well, okay, how do we start this off? This one exists, so I basically wired it up to that capacitor became C3, and C4 became this little one here, which is a pretty small capacitor. They're calling for 80 microfarads. I had a 47 on hand. This one is a, what? It's a 120 UF. So these aren't matched very well. Anyway, that's what I did. 100 watt resistor. I don't have that laying around anymore. This is a 80 microfarad. I just put a 10 microfarad in here with 2 250s in series. I didn't even add equalization caps. And what else? Or resistors. And that's about it. So I'm getting about 290 volts out of this thing now, and not much ripple. The bias, he had mucked around with that too. Pretty much changed this back the way it was, and it simply worked. So this capacitor was here, this one was here, even little diode was there. So this thing came back to life and works. So that's a tour of the Drake power supply. These 2 green wires are for filament voltage, which they spin that out on green goes to what? Black and white. So they use 2 black and white wires. You can see the green here goes to black and white. There's the white, there's the black, and those go out to the big cable here. Same thing with the HV wire here for 650 volts. That goes out through an orange wire. And sure enough, here's the orange wire, and that exits this way. I simply had to add a little wire to go over here because this wire had been hacked off. And what else? The 2 yellows for the B plus supply here from the transformer, yellow wire here, and those exit via a yellow wire. So sure enough, there's the yellow wire. Ooh, I gotta solder that. Look at that. I never soldered that. Anyway, there's the yellow wire, and those go out through here. That's about it. The bias, he didn't muck around too much with it, goes out through a green wire. That wire was still attached right here to that capacitor. Anyway, people sell kits to rebuild these for like 80 bucks or something, maybe 90 bucks, 100 bucks shipped. I could have put in one of those kits, but I thought, you know what, if I have parts laying around here, and if this thing basically works, I'm just going to make it work. I'm not going to muck around with ordering kits and all that crap and putting in boards. I just thought, if I can make it work with things I have around the house here, make it work. This I'd ordered for the 100V. It was a spare one I ordered. This was in here. These were in here. The guy had some diodes in here that seemed to work, so that was it. I think there's some spare parts laying around here. I pulled a few diodes out, as you can see. But all in all, it worked out. So now it's time to wire the plug up and try it on a Drake. Okay, that's my video. Thanks for watching. Drake 100V power supply, fixing the thing up. Take care.